Hi, Amy. It's Margie with Basmati. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Margie?
I'm really good. Thank you. Thank you. Today we're talking to Aimee. She's with SoulHappy.life, and she's an intuitive healer, and she does a ton of stuff, actually. There's like so much fun stuff about her. It's really great, and I feel really honored that she's sharing this conversation with us today. I know that she just got back from a little event for a week that was really amazing. We got to chat a little bit about it, and hopefully she'll share a little bit about what she does and what she can share with you. Does that sound okay, Amy?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Well, tell me a little bit about you and how you got on this journey.
Good question. So I believe my journey, it really began when I was born, right? For all of us. And I'm just intuitive. I'm very intuitive, and what I mean by that is I know things off the top of my head to be true, and I see visions, and I can feel other people's emotions, and I've always been extremely sensitive to energy and just known things. And so when I was little things such as knowing that there was a police officer around the corner when my mom was speeding and telling her to slow down, and knowing through dreams and visions things that were going to happen, and it was always out of protection that information would come to me, either protection for myself or my amazing sisters or other people around me, some that I didn't even really know. And it hit a point in my early 20s where I recognized I was really different. And I'd felt that throughout all of my years, especially through junior high and high school and so forth. I just didn't know how to have just a really not deep conversation. I always would go deep because I see layers deep, and I'm curious. I have a huge curiosity about truth, about people, about experiences, and truly just about energy and spirit. And then in my early 20s, I hit a point where that difference started to invalidate me, and I started to think that something was wrong with me. And this is something that I hear from my clients and my students all the time now, is that when we're really intuitive, which we all are, some of it lays dormant after a time, especially after childhood, we hit a point where we think that something's wrong with us. And in my early 20s, I actually went to a counselor and shared with her. I said, I am just messed up. I just need some serious help. I started describing what was going on, and as this beautiful universe always works, she was the perfect counselor for me. And after a couple sessions, she said, actually, you don't need to be with me. You need to go and take this meditation class. And that's when I went to Intuitive Way in Walnut Creek, and they're still there. And they're just so dear to my heart because that embarked me on a journey of a 4-week meditation class, led me to just years and years and years of programs and studying and really developing my intuition. And even in that first 4 weeks, that class was so, I say it, and it can sound quite dramatic, but it saved my life in a way that I got to learn that I'm not crazy, and it isn't weird, and that it didn't matter what anybody else said or thought. I started to trust myself and validate myself, and I have this deep passion of helping people to do that for themselves, to develop their intuition, to trust themselves, and to really cultivate and create a life that they just love. So that's how I got started in it, and I started doing little readings and such once I moved from Walnut Creek, and I started teaching workshops, and I feel so blessed in that my business, Soul Happy, has just flourished on its own. Everything is organic, and my clients have just come from word of mouth, and it just keeps growing, and I am humbled and honored and feel really blessed to live the life that I live.
and Aimee, I know you and I get to see you, and it shows, it radiates through you. And it's a real gift that you share just in your presence. Let me ask you a question.
You.
For someone who might not know what a reading is. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what that looks like?
Yeah, that is such a good question. You know,
I know.
through the years, it is. It's
Yeah.
interesting because when somebody's in front of me and they ask me, basically I'm reading the energy of the question for that person. So it's very much, it can be an individualized answer. But for the broad spectrum of what a reading is, the way that I view it is it's a time and space where I'm sitting with one person, whether that person is physically with me or we're working through Zoom or a phone and so forth. And I have clients around the world and obviously local as well. So, but we're sitting together. I'm in a meditative state. My eyes are closed. I'm in a clairvoyant state where I have the gift to be able to look and see their energy and see them as spirit and give them a spiritual hello and offer them a spiritual perspective, an energetic perspective on what's happening in their life, and give them a hello as a spirit, which ultimately helps them to connect to who they are and their capability and validate them.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily telling them, it's, a lot of people I think, fortune telling or things of that such. And it's not. I think that media has played into what that is. But it's quite different. It's very much in present time, me looking at the energy of that individual and different questions that they have and looking at the energetic perspective of that person and what's happening.
So, I view it as, and that's so spot on. And when I feel into things, and you've had this before, I'm sure, where someone asks you something and it's not the words, it's the space between the words and the energy behind it that the connection is right. So they might be saying, I don't know, something random, like, is my mom sick or something, right? But really what their soul is asking is something much deeper than that. Like who am I and how does this work with me, right? And so so it is interesting that you're right, it's an individual thing, and it's so much bigger than the question we ask, right?
Yes.
It's our connection to the divine in ourselves and the ability. It's so cool when you get to share an experience like that with someone who helps mirror to you your connection, right? Because that's what's happening in that conversation, or that's how it feels to me. And what comes forth from there. I mean, I'm sure that you have people who automatically just tears of joy for being seen and the ability to remember a little bit about who we truly are outside of all these layers, right?
That's right. Our pure essence. And
our pure,
and away from all the labels of what we show up as every single day. And we're human. And so, to your point, we need those labels and we agree to them. And they're beautiful and they're fun and they're different ways to experience our self-expression, our creative expression of spirit through this body that we're gifted. And what's so important is to stay connected, though, to the truth of who we are, which is without the labels. So it's like a play date of life, right? And what do we want to experience in that lifetime while still really staying connected and true to who we are so that we can have the growth and the experiences that we want.
Yes, and the peace and joy and love that's really available to us on this physical plane, right? We've gotten so far away from that. And so I want to ask you, in case someone doesn't really know what intuition is. I mean, I think people have an idea, but could you maybe expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, I'm glad you asked that question. This is something that I've been looking at a lot lately, and in fact, I just created just this fun little intuition quiz, and what I just spent the last few months working on was naming the different ways our intuition speaks to us. And so I created 4 different terms for each of the essences, the intuitive essences. So one of the ways that our intuition speaks to us, and it can be probably the most dominant way that our intuition speaks to us, is through our clairsentience. It's our ability to feel energy, and it vibrates in the 2nd chakra in the belly. And that's where we get that gut feeling, or we can enter a room and we get a sense of what's happening in that room without anybody speaking a word. You can tell it feels uncomfortable, it feels really exciting, it feels whatever it feels. You're reading the energy of that room, the atmosphere of that room. And that's a very, very powerful way. And one of the aspects of that type of reading, of using your intuition in that way, is that sometimes we get stuck in what's my emotion versus what's my best friend's emotion who I'm walking away from. And boundaries can be pushed and enmeshment happens, and it can get tricky. We can get stuck in that emotional tidal wave because it's very much a body level communication. And so it's very informative, and the key is bringing that up into your clairvoyance where you can see the energy that you're feeling. And when you can see the energy you're feeling, then you're able to start to differentiate between what is you and what is not you. Just that simple act. And then we also have our clairaudience, which is where we might hear our own voice. We might hear our guides. We might hear through vibration. I call it vibrational muse. We hear and experience energy as a vibration. Then there's also, obviously the clairvoyance, which is in the 6th chakra. And this is sovereign visionary is what I call it. And this is the place where we can see energy most neutrally. So we get out of the emotion. We can then see it for what it is, and we can see most clearly. This is where we can see our truth. And we can act from that place, and this is where we make decisions in our life that are in alignment with our truth. And then there's also the knowing off the top of my head. And we hear these terms all the time in everyday life. Like people say, I don't know how I knew that. I just knew it off the top of my head. And that's the 7th chakra right at the top of the head. And this is where I call this the wise soul. This is where, again, we just know things without any logical reasoning or any way of actually knowing it intellectually. It's just this really deep knowing and awareness that we have. So our intuition speaks to each of us in different ways. We might feel it. We might just know it again. We might hear it. We might see it. So there's no wrong way to experience our intuition. They're little soul whispers. They're ways that we connect with our body, and our body speaks to us and guides us. And it is a very profound, wise way to live life when you can start to live intuitively.
Yes, and it does free us of a lot of the limitations that we put on ourselves as well, right? So did you put that quiz on your website? Because that's a really cool thing for people to play with.
You know what? This is perfect timing. Yes, I have it up, and I just got back from Good Girls Symposium where I got to speak to over 600 women, and we talked a lot about this. And I had the quizzes printed out, and women had so much fun, and there were even some men there that they learned a lot about themselves. And so please go on my website, and on my website you can put in your email address and your name, and then you'll automatically be emailed not only the quiz, but I did a free class. It's an online class that's full of audios and videos where we go through, I explain what intuition is. And more than that, how your intuition, you get to identify how your intuition speaks to you. And I think that's the first start to really understanding. It's not woo-woo. It's not out there. It's not this foreign land. It's every day we're experiencing it. It's just sometimes we're not aware of what it is. So awareness is key, right? So that then you can start to recognize, oh wait, I know what this is. I remember this is my intuition, and we turn those I knew it moments into I know it moments,
I
right?
know
Like,
it. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, please. It's www.soulhappy.life.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm going to do that too, just so you know, so when you see my name pop up.
Yay.
But I want to say I love how you explain that, because we have all had moments, whether it's the gut feeling, the knowing, a sense in our body. We can all relate to that, so it doesn't feel far removed from our natural state, because it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's beautiful that you offered that quiz up, so that people have a way of acknowledging that actually all of those are possible. And we've probably all had at least one or two moments in different ways of feeling or knowing something, right? Whether it was from the time we can go back to being a little child, like you said, I have many moments of that as a very young, from when I can remember, actually, up and through now, where even it's like, oh, I shouldn't turn down that street. Don't know why, but I trust that and don't do it. And then there's something there, right? That's right. Or I got to, this happened to me the other day. I was going somewhere, and I thought, oh, I better stop in here first. It was not my plan. I was on a plan, right? I had set out my structure and what I was doing, and I thought, no, I'm going to go pop in here. And I popped in and ended up meeting someone who I needed to meet right at that moment. And I knew as soon as I walked through the door, I was in an office, and I went, oh, I'm supposed to talk to her. And it seemed silly, but it was it actually is helping someone I know that needed some help, and it was the person I needed to meet at that time, right? And it was just trusting that feeling and doing it, walking into it, right? So.
And I want to say as well, because I'm sure that there are some individuals that what lights up right now is the intellect, right? This is not about a competition between intellect and intuition. It's not a black or white. It's not a better or worse. Yeah. It's that we need both our intellect and our intuition. And in society, for the most part, we value the intellect. It's, well, does it make sense? Well, on a checklist, what does it look like? What are the pros and the cons? And we move through life making decisions in a lot of ways. We're taught this, to move through life making decisions with our intellect, our analyzer. Now, our intellect is amazing. It is this brilliant machine that is smart and wise. And I see it as our intuition informs our intellect. But ultimately, our intuition is what makes the decision. So we need both our intuition and our intellect to live in this life our fullest potential. But I think that's an important piece, because sometimes I see where individuals will back away from or feel unsafe from exploring intuition because they think that means that they need to let go of their intellect. And that's
really good point. That's a really, really good point. And you're right. We need both. Well, that's why we're here, right? To get all the pieces to work together anyway. And I couldn't have driven without my intellect, right?
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, I'll break it down to super simple terms. Like we need both. And so, yes, I got the feeling, but I was also driving and had to use my brain and my mind to do it. And that breaks it down simply, but like even on a much bigger scale, right? Like it all works together. I'm so glad you brought that up, because you're right. You're right. There's people think it's one way or the other, or it's this or that, and it's not.
No,
just like we know, right? It's not.
We're just all souls living a human experience. Yeah.
Yes, we're all souls having this human experience, and it's beautiful, and it's an incredible gift that we get to share that with others, right? And mirror to each other in everyday life. So tell me a little bit about, if you have time, about some of the work you do. And I know we talked about following up and sharing maybe a session or something with everyone, maybe parts of a live event, and also how we can, because I know that you work remotely. Do you want to expand on that a little bit real quick about how that works, the remote work? I know we touched on it a little bit, but so if I scheduled a Skype session with you.
Yeah, so there's actually no preparation.
Okay, good.
So to schedule, yeah, it's really simple. To schedule, you can go onto my website and schedule through there, or send me an email, whatever feels most comfortable to you, or call. And we just find a time that works. It's a 60-minute session. I do have longer sessions and different offerings, like a full day session where we get together and I offer reading, meditation. I guide you through different meditations based off of the findings from the reading. And then we dive deep with open eyes in the doing. So it's bringing the being into the doing. So coming up with an action plan, whether you're an entrepreneur for your business, I do that quite a bit, or an individual who is looking at their life or their home, or what is it that you really want to shift and create change in. So that's one aspect. And then also the intuitive readings. So I have packages and I just have one-time sessions. And people ask me all the time, how often should I come and what should I do? And my answer is always, let it be an intuitive hit. Let it be where it calls to you that, oh, I think it's time to get another reading. And that might be in a week, it might be in 3 months, it might be in a year. But it really is, this is your journey, and I'm here to hold space and to guide you to find your own answers, because I don't have them. So you can go online and schedule, and if it's distance, I like to use Zoom. It's a video conferencing, and it records it for us, so it will be automatically recorded, and I can send you the recording of it, and you're welcome to keep it or delete it. It goes both ways. And with distance, for spirit and energy, there's no time or space. So as far as the quality of the reading and so forth, it does not matter. You can be anywhere in the world, and our energies can be together. And I can see where you are, and I can see that energy and communicate to that. So that's a beautiful thing. The in-person, the beauty of that is the physical body then is in a grounding space. So a space that I've grounded, and it's dedicated to that reading. So that's a nice hello to the physical body. So if you do offer, or you do choose to do a reading that is not in person, I encourage the individual to have a space that's carved out for them, and they can be seated quietly and hold that space sacred. One of the benefits to doing the distance, whether you're in your home and you're across the country or wherever you might be, is that receiving that communication in your home actually starts to work the energy of the home. You start to learn how to set your energy within your personal space. So it's just like, anybody can go to mountaintop and meditate. Or when you go to a retreat, you can feel really, really good, and then you leave that retreat, and there's a re-entry place of going back to your reality, and then it can feel kind of thrown because it's so different. So doing work when you are at your home, and this goes also for programs and classes that I teach, you start to find seniority. You start to learn how to be senior in your space, in your own environment, energetically, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Yeah. Yes, it does totally make sense. I loved also that you brought up about it's like self and your intuition, and it's like when you went to the therapist and they said, you don't need me, this is direction for you. Is they put the responsibility on you, right? They shared with you what they saw or felt, but they allowed you to decide. And that's huge. And when we start exploring and going deeper into who we are, right, is understanding that it is about self-study, and we are very blessed to have people around us who who can share space with us to help us do that, right?
Yes.
And I know you have self-study courses, which is really awesome for anyone out there, where you want to, like you said, practicing in your home and doing the work, and how that does just shift, I mean, the codes in your home, everything. So you've definitely created a space not only for people who are in your presence, but when they're in their home. And isn't that what this is about, is bringing this into life, right?
Exactly.
In our everyday life. So Aimee, I'm so honored and grateful for you sharing the space and having this dialogue with us. It's really, really beautiful, and I'm really looking forward to doing some of the other recordings and you sharing your events on Basmati, and I hope anyone who's in the area or not in the area can join. Oh, that's what I did want to ask this. So if you have an event at your space, can someone from long distance share in that event via Zoom?
Yes.
Okay.
We can do that. It depends on
the event
size, the event and the size. So there would be a limited amount, just so that I can make sure that that I can honor each individual, whether they're physically there or Zooming in. But yes, I have them set up where they can Zoom into that. And Zoom is very easy. It is so not intimidating. So I can always help people get that set up too. It's just a matter of downloading that app, and then I send a meeting invite. They click on that invite, and then they're in the room. So it's really easy to do.
It's super easy. I do know just the downloading part might be confusing for some, but it's very easy. And like she said, she can help you with it. It's and they have made it so user friendly, which I'm excited about. You know.
Me too. I'm not a techie person. So.
I'm totally not a techie person, but I'm learning to be better with it.
I know. Me
and
too.
not as resistant. Thank you for taking the time. Again, it's Aimee with soulhappy.life, and when you go on our site, there's a whole bunch of information on there. It's really cool. I really love the Brave Girl University, by the way. I've looked at that. That's really fun. So please check out our blog and her upcoming events. And if you have any questions, email her. And please do that intuitive quiz. I'm so glad you put that together. I did not know that prior to our call, so I'm really happy I asked about that. Because what a fun thing for everyone. So
I hope everybody enjoys it and it informs them more. And I just thank you so much. I really am honored to speak with you as well and to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you from my heart to yours. Much gratitude. I'll talk to you soon.